human-animal bond is promoted when we just simply sit and pet an animal for a few minutes. The oxytocin levels rise. It's actually a physical effect happening.
Physical, physiological shift
Yeah.
that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering what else in terms of mental health, whether it's struggles with mood, isolation is really a big thing.
Having a companion can help us feel not so alone. They're not judgmental of you. You can tell them anything.
Yes.
You want the human touch as well as the animal touch.
How has that helped with people who've experienced trauma working with pets? I just want to quickly thank you for beginning to watch this podcast episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so. Would love it if you join our community. You'll also be up to date on the latest content, and this really helps me reach out to more guests. You can also visit our website, centerformindfulness.ca. There's free events about mindfulness and laughter. Hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode. I'm truly excited to share with you this conversation. I've actually been excited just thinking about it, and thinking about today's conversation brought a smile to my face and just made me feel good. I want to welcome today's guest, Dr. Kim Dawson, who's a clinical psychologist, and we'll be covering a really interesting topic about pet-assisted therapy, mental health benefits of owning pets, and maybe even some challenges that come with it, as well as his recent work into psychedelic assisted therapy. So first, a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Kasim. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And for those who are not as familiar with your work, I just want to say a few more things, because you've published multiple academic journals, as well as taught at universities and colleges. And I want to share something that you're the co-founder for, which I really want to speak about as well. I'm just going to read it here. You're the co-founder and board member of the Warm Hearts Pet Safe Haven Association, a Canadian charity whose mission is providing funding and resources to support housing of pets belonging to women escaping domestic violence. I'll put the link in the show notes and would love to speak about that today as well. So thank you again for joining us. And I wonder if we can begin with, where did your love for pets begin? Before it started showing up into your professional work, I'm just curious, how did this love for pets begin?
Good question. It started really early for me, actually. I remember I was 4 years old, and my family had recently moved to Vancouver, and we went and got a kitten, a Siamese cat. Now, that Siamese cat turned out to be a real howler. She didn't never stop howling. Well, maybe a few times, but luckily she was quite affectionate for the most part, until I started cutting her hair.
Oh, no.
You remember, I was just a little kid.
That's right.
From 4 to, she got to be pretty old. So by the time I was in my late teens, that's when she passed at that point. But in the whole time that I grew up with her, she was an amazing cat, really a lot to offer. Yeah, just the whole time she was an amazing cat, lots to say, lots to go outside. She'd love to go outside and explore. She'd bring in some gifts for us from the outdoors, the mice especially.
So she went hunting. What was her name?
Mish.
Mish. So Mish was a hunter.
She was, yes, most definitely. Yeah. So I grew acquainted with the wildlife of our garden, our neighborhood, through her initially. Yes. She was very affectionate at times too. She would just come up and just love to be petted, and just amazing. She would rub her chin against my chin. It was just really, really lovely. And she would sleep with me, and just a lovely cat. She did not appreciate me cutting her hair though, so I got in big trouble for that. Not from my parents, but from her. She turned around and bit me
Oh
She
no.
bit me like, oh man, that hurt. So I didn't do that again.
Yeah.
You
It's
learn from
amazing.
experience, right?
Totally. It's amazing how expressive pets are. And there's things they
Mhm.
like, there's things they don't like, they have their own personality.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
know I mentioned this beautiful connection you had earlier on, and also the passing. And so that's something I'd like to speak about today. Maybe we'll come back to is, dealing with pet loss,
Mm.
because that's not easy too. So,
Mhm.
so here you are, you have early experience with having a pet in your life. And then, and how did it kind of become part of your work, integrating into your work in psychology as a clinical psychologist? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
interesting. My mother told me I would never, I would never have any other pets besides cats. She figured I was a cat person from day one. And she kept, over the years, she would just remind me of that.
Mm.
Um, but I really grew to love all animals. I grew to love nature just over the course of my childhood and going bird watching with my dad and my stepmom and seeing a different perspective through my other two parents' eyes besides my
Mm.
mother. And yeah, we'd go up the mountains and we came across bears and
Mm.
just, a little bit of healthy fear in there, keep away from them. But
Yes.
yeah, I love the bird songs we would hear. And also, when I got married, I really grew to love dogs. I
Mm.
did have the occasional good experience with dogs as a child. It was a house down the road. Um, and yeah, I grew to be friends with this dog that was seemed always to be kept in the backyard. And so I'd go
Mm.
up to the gate and just put my hand there outside the gate. Is it okay to sort of, just
Yes.
be gradually became friends with this dog. And that was really cool.
Mm.
And dogs can be so friendly. Of course, they can be fierce as well at
Of
times. So that's
course.
something to watch for and be
Of
careful
course.
of. But yeah, starting very slowly and gently with them and letting them get to know you. And but yeah, I'm marrying my wife, and she loved dogs. She'd had one as a child, so she wanted
Mm.
to share in the experience with me of having a dog as we grew our family. And yeah, so we started out with a lovely Shepherd Cross
Mm.
and moved into having two dogs. She wanted to have two dogs, so we got a poodle cross, cockapoo or a labradoodle or
Mm.
one of those. Anyways, yeah, she was a lovely dog, and the two of them really hit it off. And you see these two become like siblings, and they're following
Mm.
each other around and having fun together and sort of play fighting together and spending time on the beach together and the forest and the walks and daily
Mm.
walks, right? The dogs will take you out into nature, right? They need to be out. They need to be outside more than cats do, right?
Yeah.
And dogs like to be running around and getting their exercise and not just doing their business. That to me,
Right.
that's a shortfall if we just take them out to do their toileting. And that's it. Wow,
Mm.
whoa, you're missing a huge picture. It's like like they are wanting you to come out in nature with them. And then it's
Mm.
such a blast just watching them sniff and explore where the other one is sniffing. And okay, what you doing over here? Oh, okay, what you doing over here? Lots of exploration, right? And then you can't
Mm.
help but look, and watch them, right? Well, you should as a handler, as a dog handler, keep an eye on them, right? If they're off leash.
Mm.
And okay, what are they doing up there? And so you go and look too, right? Let's see from a distance what they're doing. Throw things in the water for them and playing with the ball. And it's just fun. It's fun having a dog.
Mm.
Yeah.
Even as you're speaking about it, I can see a smile on you. I'm noticing a smile on me as I'm hearing you describe this connection that you have. And there's also the sense of being present. You're with
Mm.
them. Because sometimes I see people, be on their phone and maybe they need to be, checking some text or something. But sometimes it seems like it's like a to-do, get the dog out, come back. You're describing actually one of the characteristics of being a good dog parent is
Mm.
enjoying your time with them, being with them, and giving them a good quality of life as well. Because sometimes we think more of what am I going to get in owning a pet? But also, I guess,
Yeah.
what is a pet going to get from being with me in my life? That's another way
Hmm.
of looking at it, right? So,
Yeah.
any tips for that? And I guess one of the reasons I'm asking you, I'm just in the process of getting a dog,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Yeah, lovely.
I'm very excited and
Hmm.
nervous too, because I've
Hmm.
always owned birds, cockatiels and African
Hmm.
gray. And the African gray, I had him for 36, 37 years. So it was a
Hmm.
buddy of mine, long time.
Hmm.
So, any good things to keep in mind for becoming dog parents and being a good dog parent?
Yeah, I would say do your research.
Mm,
If you're planning ahead, you're able to think ahead. You're not going to just dive in. You're doing some thinking, you're doing some planning. Okay, how is this
mm,
dog, kind of dog that you're thinking of getting, how is it going to fit with your life? How are
mm,
you going to fit with its life, right? With the dog's life, are you going to be able to care for the dog? Do you have enough time in your busy day, in
mm,
your busy evening to look after this
mm,
dog? Are you going to find yourself, pushed for time when it comes to spending time with the dog? Because dogs really, they stay healthy by relating to us, right? By becoming friends with us. They're kind of programmed over the course of their breeding since the beginning when dogs were bred from wolves, right? They've become programmed to be amicable, right? Like companions, like friends to us, and loyalty. It's been bred in. It depends to some extent on the breed there, but I think they're all programmed that way. And it's a
mm,
matter of facilitating that if that's what you want.
mm,
I mean, some people, again, I don't favor this, but some people just, they put them in the backyard and that's that. They
yeah.
belong in the backyard. Or they put them against tied up to a tree on a rope or a leash or a chain even.
Right.
And I think that's not humane, actually,
Mm,
is to leave the dog out alone and they're just going to be really sad for the rest of their days in that home. So I
mm,
hope for dogs that are in that situation to actually be rescued
yeah.
from that situation because it's just neglect of a sentient being who has feelings.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So around the tips as well is that and treating them as such as beings with feelings
Mm,
they want to relate to you and they want a friend and they want somebody to care for them and they give back, right? They give
mm,
back in spades, right? Their limbic programs in their brains, they're very emotionally programmed, very
mm.
heart-centered beings, and they just if you warm to them, they will warm to you, right? And some they'll warm to you right away. You don't have a choice in
Yeah.
that.
Different personalities somehow.
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
different personalities.
Yeah.
Some of the breeds are more friendly than others too, so that's something to think about.
Mm,
There's a book, actually, my wife is a dog trainer. She was pointing to a book by Kim Brophy called Meet Your Dog. And
meet your dog.
yeah, so this is an example of a book which goes over a whole, like, I don't know, 12 different breed types. And she looks at how they learn and the kind of environments that
Mm,
they favor and not, and their genetics and their training. Yeah,
mm.
so those four sort of features are in the book, and yeah, it's really, really very good.
That sounds like a really interesting book. I'm interested in this
Hmm.
because what you were saying is doing our research as new pet parents, or even someone who has a pet and considering bringing a dog or any pet, doing the research so it becomes a two-way thing. Like, I will
Mhm.
benefit, but also I want to bring good experience for this pet, taken care of. And I was actually
Mhm.
surprised as I've been researching and even learning new terms that I didn't know about. And I heard since COVID, there's an increase of, what do they call it, surrender rate of pets, like dog owners turning
Mhm.
over to shelters that they can't take care of, like
Yeah.
because everything shut down, people wanting pets, and then realizing, oh, I can't take care of this pet. So that's
Yeah.
part of a responsibility is
Mhm.
um, taking a close look into
Yeah.
our lives. And this is kind of turning in. This is the psychology part. What am I thinking? What is my life?
Hmm.
Not
Yeah,
just
exactly. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, they work full time, right? And they work outside the home full time now that COVID's not so much of an isolating factor anymore.
Mm.
And yeah, if you work at work all day, then you're away from the dog. And what's the dog going to be doing? You could set up a security camera, I guess, inside and have
Yes.
watch the dog for like you can watch your kids in the home and what
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
doing, right? That's not companionship. That it really isn't, doesn't display to me a devotion, right, to the
Mm.
dog. And I think if you get a dog, you're making a commitment of, a couple of dogs we've had have lived 18 years.
Mm.
And like the cat I mentioned earlier, that's 16 years. So you're potentially in for the long haul.
Yeah.
Unless, again, I get into the feeling of discomfort around the inhumanity of the situation you just described, right? Where
Yeah.
animals, some people treat them as possessions, and that they're just like, oh, okay, if this animal doesn't work out, well, we'll just give them to the SPCA. We'll
Yeah.
drop them off at the door if they're closed, right? Or take them in, there's stories, there's descriptions that I kind of prefer not to get into very deeply right now because
It's
they could
felt.
bring down the conversation, right?
Yeah.
There's some dangerous situations. They can sometimes be killed because they're not wanted, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's very sad.
And I think that's an
Yeah.
important part, as I know we're going to look into the benefits and mental health benefits, but
Hmm.
also, there's a bit of almost like a gentle pause to take a look. Is this for me now? And so
Yeah.
it's not an impulsive decision
Yeah,
of, oh, what
exactly.
a cute puppy at the
Hmm.
SPCA. Oh, what a cute puppy. I want to take this puppy. Or what a cute. And I have to tell you, even in my research, I was looking around. I was like, oh, I found one breed that I really like. Oh, it's so cute. I'm like, I'm not ready right now. That was a couple of months ago. I don't have the setup. I can't just do an emotional like, oh, I
Yeah.
just want this now. It's like, no, this is a long-term commitment.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I was raised with a cat, and
Mm.
we had a son. We adopted a son, and we taught him how to, care for the animals. So we had a cat or two along the way as well,
Mhm.
and the two dogs. And there's great learning for the children, and
Yeah.
feeding and caring and petting them and
Responsibility
relating to the
too. Learning. Yeah.
responsibility. And, to the health benefits, I'm thinking of, just the act of caring encourages the development of empathy and compassion, right, in the
Mm.
person. And that's true for adults too, right? And also enhances the capacity to bond, right? So there's research showing that our bonding hormone, oxytocin, right, our bonding hormone, it promotes like love between people, but also promotes caring and love between people and animals. The human
Mm.
animal bond is promoted when we just simply sit and pet an animal for a few minutes. The
Mm.
oxytocin levels rise. So
Mm.
yeah, it's actually a physical effect happening. Yeah,
Mm. So it's a whole
and with
physical, physiological
yeah,
shift that happens.
hmm
And I'm wondering what else in terms of this, research in terms of mental health, whether it's
hmm
struggles with mood or anxiety. I'm wondering, is there some research on benefits? Because I know it feels good myself. And I'm wondering,
yeah.
some listeners may be wondering, so is it just a feeling or this is actually that exists?
Well, I would say if it's a feeling, it exists.
Yes.
It exists inside you, and that's your
Yeah.
subjective response, and that's valid totally, right?
Mm.
At the same time, yeah, we're interested in is this true for a lot of other people as well? And the research can show and does show that it is. Yeah. I
Mm.
mean, there is with a friendly dog. I got a caveat with a friendly dog, for example. If you have a not so friendly dog, well, you're not going to calm as much as you would with a friendly dog, right?
Mm.
So calming, decrease in blood pressure, decrease in heart rate comes along with the calming, subjective response of calming. And having a companion can help us feel not so alone, which of course motivated people to get pets during the COVID time, but people feel alone. There doesn't have to be a pandemic around for people
Yeah,
to
even
feel
if it's
alone.
over, when
Yeah,
pandemic has been over,
yeah,
isolation is really a big thing.
it is. Yeah.
It's isolation and loneliness.
Hmm. Yeah, very big thing. And it can be, high risk towards depression, suicidal thinking sometimes. And so it can be very helpful to have a non-judgmental, and animals are, again, they need to be on the friendly side, right? They're not judgmental of you, right? You can tell them anything. You can tell them all your secrets. You may not even have to see a counselor, although I still think it's a good idea for everybody to have a therapist.
Yes.
But you want the human touch as well as the animal
For
touch, right?
sure. But
You
it's
want to
that
have that.
powerful. Like you're really
Yeah.
highlighting, it's not
Hmm.
like it's something that's truly meaningful and can
Hmm.
really make a helpful impact in someone's life.
Hmm.
Caring for and the companionship of the pet. And
Yeah.
there's something about a bond. Like uh, I was thinking about it, like what else makes this bond special? Like there's a non-judgmental aspect you're mentioning, like
Hmm.
um, I know my African gray for all these years, the 36, 37 that I mentioned. It doesn't matter what kind of day I have, and it's like sees me, he's excited to see me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And his name was
Yeah.
Rocky. And I named him obviously after the movie at the time, Rocky. Then in the 80s,
Yeah.
a while back,
Right.
and
Right.
it's just yeah, it just sings and it lifted me up even when I wasn't
Yeah.
in the mood. So there was
Yeah.
a bond. There's a bond. And what is this? Like, what else about this bond?
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy when my dogs, they greet me at the door when I come home, like you just said with your parrot. Yeah.
Mm,
They greet me, and especially Joey, our Labradoodle that I use for animal assisted therapy in my office
mm,
here at home. Yeah, he's just so pleased to see me. He just comes to the door. Yeah, yeah, he's wiggling all around. He's rubbing himself against my legs. He's like, pet me, and I can't help it. I gotta smile. I gotta laugh. He's filled with antics, right? And he's just so interested in relating, right? Just
mm.
touch and looking at me, and so the eye contact is there, and it's yeah, that those are the sort of the connection anyway. It's yeah,
Yeah.
the micro elements of the
Yeah.
connection, right? It's
Y-
that eye contact and the touch and the playfulness and the smile and all that. It's great.
Yeah. I'm even seeing in my mind as you're describing it, like this connection, this
Mhm.
playfulness. And this
Mhm.
really invites us to be like right here, present. There's something about,
Mhm. Yep.
requiring this informal mindfulness where it
Mhm.
means being present.
Yep.
Like, and pets do that.
Absolutely.
It's like even petting them. Now, I'm not thinking of what's going on in my mind. Like, it's like I'm thinking about something else. I'm connecting with something else. And there's something
Mhm.
beautiful about just being present in a loving
Mhm.
way, being
Yeah.
present in a loving way with an animal. And it really there's a softening of the heart that happens. Even if we don't
Yeah.
want to. There's like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could be carrying pretty irritated thoughts at times, unpleasant thoughts at times coming home after whatever has been happening in my life out there outside the home. And I mean, my parents are getting old, so I'm thinking about them, and there's a struggle around that, and so some sadness there, and
Yeah.
so got to care for them, and it's like that brings a lot of unhappiness to me,
Mm,
right? But when I come home to Joey and our other dog Jaxie, and they're happy to see me, and they got a smile on their face, and they've got they're just looking at me and
mm.
wagging their tails, and I can't help but be lifted up by that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels, this the realities in life, the challenges, aging
Hmm.
parents, stressors, challenges,
Hmm.
illness, honoring those, they're happening, they're here, and that's not easy to deal with. And there's
Hmm.
something about nurturing positive emotion that I hear from you, as your dog
Hmm.
welcomes you home and the
Hmm.
loving, playful, it's it's not saying you're ignoring what's happening outside. No, it's
No, no.
nurturing
Hmm.
nurturing that
Oh, it's
positive
very
emotion to
nurturing.
charge
Yeah.
yourself because you're gonna have
Hmm.
to still deal with the challenges, like all of us.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Doesn't take those away. We still have those, but it makes them certainly easier to bear. Yeah,
Mm.
very much so. And when my clients come into the office here, I offer them the opportunity to meet with Joey and with Jaxie. They're two very different dogs, so I can talk about that. Uh,
Mhm.
Joey is, like I said, he's the super friendly Labradoodle, super friendly. He just wants to meet everybody. He's like goes up to anybody. He's like, "Hi, my name is Joey. You want to pet me? You want to play? Let's go. Yeah, come on." And yeah, and he's so nurturing with the with my clients, and you know, not everybody wants to see the dogs, and that's
Mm,
okay, right? Not everybody likes dogs, right?
mm,
It's important that they're interested in consenting to the
right.
interaction with the dogs, and then yeah, certainly that's for sure
Mm,
going to be a benefit to them. It's just the receptiveness, the openness to it, and to being
mm,
in contact with friendly dogs in the first place can be very opening up to for clients to have the opportunity to build rapport, right? To build
mm,
warmth, to build a nurturing feeling with the dog, right?
mm.
Themselves nurturing the dog and vice versa. So it's really a reciprocal process, right? Of course, like with myself, Joey puts a smile on everybody's face. Doesn't matter what the client's here for, anxiety, depression, whatever. They see
Yes.
Joey and they're like, wow, he's so engaging and cute and all that. Yeah, he's wonderful. Whereas, Joey's on the social side, right? Very, very social. Jaxie has had some trauma in his life. So he came to us having, from the SPCA, we picked him up
Mm,
there, and he wouldn't allow us to go near him for we had to visit him 4 days in a row
mm,
before he allowed us even to touch him.
mm.
We had to sit still
Wow.
every time we went, and he would circle around us and bark at us and bark at us. And over the course of that time, he drew closer and closer to closer in the circles, gradually coming close enough for us to pet him without him moving away.
Well, that takes, kindness, love, and patience
Patience,
to enough forcing,
patience.
like not
Yeah.
forcing come here. It's like this
Hmm.
really so
Yeah.
loving of the nervous system that has experienced
Hmm.
trauma, like in pets, but
Yeah,
also in
exactly.
animal, like in humans.
Exactly. Yeah, really, really a lot of patience and kindness and
Mm,
openness to their needs, right? To what they need to deal with in their nervous systems before they're able to take on something else. Yeah, the
mm,
responsibility, the role of, a nurturer when they come and allow themselves to be petted.
yeah.
And the role of being nurtured too. They're scared of being nurtured
Yeah,
because,
receiving. So interesting.
yeah,
But like humans
receiving.
too, sometimes someone's not ready to receive nurturance.
Yeah, because often
Yeah.
with trauma, that's been something that's been abandoned, right? That
Mm,
implicit agreement to treat each other with warmth and respect has been violated, right? That boundary has been violated and it's been twisted and thrown out the window. So,
mm,
wow, we've got trauma overwhelming and the person can't deal with it. And he
mm.
wasn't able to deal with it and just got into this pattern of avoiding
As a
and
coping, like it's a
coping.
instinctual way to
And
cope
yeah,
for animals and
exactly.
humans. It's
Mhm,
avoiding, and sometimes it's needed avoiding to cope, and
mhm,
times it's not helpful. So,
mhm.
I'm wondering in terms of animal assistant therapy, those who are not familiar with it, and you've done some work as well, years ago with prisoners, but I'm wondering if we go like, what is animal assistant therapy? Those who have never heard of it or kind of heard of it but don't really understand, what is animal assistant therapy?
Animal assisted therapy is a way of working with people and animals. I've been describing Joey in that
Mm,
context in the sense of you've got a human being with some mental health difficulties, and you've got a dog who is friendly and able to approach this person regardless of their feelings, regardless of their difficult emotions and difficulties concentrating or whatever they may be dealing with, and approaches them non-judgmentally, right? Unconditional love. So it's really the use of the animal to enhance the connection with the
mm,
person to improve their mental health. In some cases, it's a physical health problem. I don't do the physical health
Mm,
problems. I'm a
mhm,
psychologist. I work with the mental and emotional health problems. But
mm,
the physical health problems, there's some people out there who are, oriented to the physical health issues.
mm.
They're often working with horses.
Right.
A lot's been done with equine assisted therapy,
Mm,
people with physical issues. So yeah, it's sort of kind of overlap too with assistance animals, so assistance dogs, for example,
mm. Like
um,
service dogs, you mean?
like service dogs. Yeah,
So so
yeah,
that
exactly.
that's different than coming to a session. Like that's a distinction. The other one, just for those who are not familiar. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's an overlap in terms of
Mm,
the type of thing you're trying to achieve. The goal is to improve the person's health. So, with an assistance dog, the dog would be trained to do particular things for the person. Say the person has epilepsy and they're about to have a seizure, and the dog can be trained to detect a
mm.
seizure is about
That's
to happen.
amazing. That's
And
amazing.
so then they mark to alert the person who's going to have the seizure, hopefully to get them to notice that and go, okay, I need to take some medication, or
Mm,
okay, I need to lie down, go into a safe position, or
mm,
to be able to develop coping strategies around the illness, which
mm,
the dog can help by cueing, right? Cueing the
mm.
person to the possible seizure, for example. And then, of course, a dog, a seeing eye dog, very, very common, a seeing eye dog for the blind.
Right.
So seeing eye dog guiding the blind around. Some people these days are looking at sort of back to the emotional domain and emotional support dog.
Which is also a
And
service dog, but does emotional support, or
it's
is that?
I think it's a kind of service dog.
Mm,
It's difficult to differentiate from a therapy dog, but the
mm.
differentiation would be that again, the emotional support dog would belong to the person with
Right, right, right,
the need
right.
for emotional support, like to the person
Um,
with the need for physical support of some kind.
yes.
Whereas animal assisted therapy, as I do it, is in the office. And the
Okay.
dog belongs to me. I'm the dog owner and the dog handler. The dog doesn't go away with the client.
Right,
They
right.
come back to visit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm,
then the other route is their animal visitation programs, for
mm,
example, that say you can have your dog trained by trained and assessed by St. John Ambulance
mm.
here in BC, and they will determine at a certain point that the dog satisfies criteria to be a visitation animal.
Oh.
So then they St. John Ambulance has a program where they will facilitate connection with hospitals or senior centers or nursing
Mm,
homes, places like that,
mhm,
so that people who are wanting connection with animals can have that.
mm.
Maybe
And
great.
what is that called again? What did you?
Uh,
It's not pet
Visitation.
visitation, visitation.
Yeah,
Okay. Mm.
pet visits.
Pet visits. Yeah.
Pet visits. Yeah.
So good to know there's so many different
Yeah.
options and overlap. And so
Yeah.
I'm wondering, someone comes to see you because mood is low or feeling anxious or they just lost someone. What does it look like as an experience when someone is interested in pet assisted therapy and they come see you? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah. So I would already have informed them through conversation or consent form prior to beginning therapy, right? That I have animal assisted therapy available. They may
Mm,
already know from my website, but I do let them know again when first contact with them before they start therapy. When they do start therapy, they come for an appointment, assuming it's in person,
mhm,
not virtual. And then they come to my office here. They enter through the basement doorway, and they come in. They sit down, and at some point, and towards the beginning, I asked them, would they like to see Joey, uh,
mhm.
my friendly Labradoodle? And they go, well, yeah, okay, or yeah, sure,
Yeah,
or nah, maybe not.
yeah.
Just want to talk right now. Some of them, that's quite common. Just especially the first session, we do a lot of talking, just information
Mhm.
gathering. But yeah, I'll, ask them a few more times, and usually quite a few of my clients want to see the dogs.
Mhm.
And yeah, so either that session where they say, yeah, I'm interested in visiting with Joey or Jaxie. And, okay, well, I'll just say just a minute and I'll go and get them. And the dogs are usually upstairs. And the dogs are, the way I do it is the dogs are held in the living space upstairs,
Mm.
um, held by doors, not by any leash or chain or anything like
Mm.
that.
Yes.
My wife is normally home at the time and she can monitor the dogs upstairs. And so then, yeah, I just go get them and bring them down the stairs carefully and bring them into the office, and the client can meet them.
Mm.
So we do that one at a time because Joey is so friendly. I work with him and the client first. And then Jaxie is quite standoffish and tends to bark a fair bit at the beginning. So I don't usually introduce Jaxie first.
Mm.
Um, Hardly ever, actually. I've only done that once, maybe. And yeah, so Joey goes first. He sets the example, a good example. And
Mm.
then as Jaxie becomes a point of interest for clients, then he can come in with Joey. Joey sort of uh, models the way to be an
Mhm.
animal assisted therapist from the
Mm.
animal point of view.
Mm. Yes.
He-
Yes.
they're both therapy assistants. They're my therapy assistants. They're in training to be genuine therapists, so they actually are born that way.
Mm. Yes, naturally. So is
Yeah.
there a specific interaction in terms of petting, connecting, talking while petting, in terms of integration of the pet assisted? There's
Yeah,
like just trying
that,
to see it in my mind as you're describing it.
that evolves naturally.
Mm.
So with Joey, he will just come up and greet people closely right
Mm.
away, like immediately. He'll be right close to the legs. He'll be close enough to pet. He just approaches people, right? Just
Mm.
naturally. That's his inclination, is to be close to people.
Yes.
And yeah, sometimes clients are concerned because he'll follow them quite close to the door when they're on their way out.
Mm.
And you never know, somebody who wanted Joey could just take him because he's so friendly. So
Joey's
I
coming along with everyone.
yeah. You want Joey for a pet? Okay. No, no, we need Joey ourselves.
Keep Joey. Yeah.
We still have some therapy needs ourselves, for we need Joey for our own
Yeah.
therapy too. Yeah.
So this is beautiful description. So, in terms of the integration of your beautiful pet, Joey, so it's both the interaction, the calming effect on the nervous system. So and then
Mhm.
that's typically what's happening is there's some support into the nervous system. Is
Mhm.
that part of the objective? Is kind of as a soothing presence and allowing and exploring other areas like whether it's anxiety or depression or trauma, whatever it is, or is there something else that
Sure.
happens?
Yeah, I think what I'm looking for there is what the client might be looking for.
Mm.
So I'm more, although I have a background in neuroscience, yes, I am interested in how the nervous system is working.
Mm.
What I noticed that's most interesting in how it's working is when Joey comes in, is people divert their attention to him and
Mm.
they calm. They calm. So certainly their parasympathetic nervous system is becoming more active, and the sympathetic nervous system, which they walked in as
Mm.
heightened, their stress level is heightened, that's being calmed.
Mm.
Right? As soon as they see Joey, as soon as they pet Joey, as soon as, there's that contact there with him, they calm. I think part of it also is that they're distracted from the reason they came in the first place.
Mm.
And they become present with their feelings for him. Like you were suggesting earlier, it's that presence, which
Mm.
the dog can evoke with his excitement to see them, to
Yeah,
feel,
yeah.
I think, appreciated by him. They feel, loved by him right away,
Mm.
and yeah, I think that's the thing.
Ah.
More and more important to me than whatever the nervous system is doing, is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
the
yeah.
clients feel that they feel that they're present with those kinds of feelings. And yeah, I think that's
Thank you so
important.
much for describing it, because it's not an area that I'm been trained in or aware of. So that's why I'm just really curious, and you
Sure.
kind of demystified it for me. So the presence of this of Joey or dog and pet assisted therapy is something about here's another animal middle of your work that can be relating to, connecting with.
Yeah.
It changes the energy, changes
Hmm.
brings presence, and then you go along doing whatever intervention is needed, whatever
Hmm.
your modality is. So it's not like
Yeah.
now you're just going to do a separate modality just with the pet. It's like whatever you do, your modality, the
Hmm.
pet is assisting in their presence. Is that right? Do I
Yeah,
have it right?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Oh,
actually,
okay.
yeah, exactly. Well put. Yeah.
Okay.
The
Now I
pet
got
is
it.
really
Now I got
assisting the
it.
process. Yeah, I think that the calming is really crucial. If they don't have calming, if they don't have a smile on their face when they're petting him, I'd be concerned about continuing with Joey and the client who doesn't
Right.
respond in that way. So yeah, it can really benefit the therapeutic process too, in terms of the non-judgmental piece that I mentioned earlier, where it's unconditional positive regard, right? That they're
Mm.
getting from Joey, and by proxy, they're getting that from me too.
Oh,
Although I come with the human judgments, the human society, the human, we all do as
mm.
human beings who live in the society which has different rules than the dogs, and the dogs bring in something different, and so they can
Mm.
shift the brain from that human context to more of a being in the moment, relaxed, regardless of those human things that
Yeah.
tend to
No,
irritate us sometimes and
yeah.
kind of get in the way of our mental health sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for explaining that so clearly. And you mentioning trauma as well. And I think you did some work
Mm-hmm.
before. It would be really helpful for listeners to know about. And then we'll talk more about the more recent work. But so how has that helped with um, people who've experienced trauma? I know you had some charity as well before, nonprofit, around working with
Mm-hmm.
trauma and people. So can you say a little bit about that? How working with trauma and pets?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in a previous incarnation of our charity, which I co-founded with my wife several years ago, it was called Mary Ellen Humane Education Society. So it was about bringing children who had trauma together with dogs who had been traumatized as well.
Mm,
So focusing in particular on the traumatic aspect of people's lives and dogs' lives. There's been other agencies historically that have used this trauma focus as something that animals, particularly dogs and people, can share. And in so doing, in sharing the space of trauma, they're in a way sharing their nervous systems, right? The way their nervous systems are wired at that point after the trauma is being kind of hyper vigilant and very on edge, looking for trouble in case it's
mm,
there, and avoiding trouble. So very kind of,
mm.
okay, first response is to not to pull towards, but to push away. And so that can come with anxiety. It can come if it's ongoing, especially it can come with depression,
Mhm.
sadness about not being able to relate easily. The ease of relating, it can be more difficult when trauma
Mm,
is part of the person or the dog's life.
mm. So this description of bringing together people who've experienced trauma and also pets, specifically dogs who've experienced trauma. And I'm just
Hmm.
curious about
Yeah,
what have you seen from your experience as you bring those together, people who've
yeah.
experienced trauma and
Mhm.
dogs who experience trauma. What happens? Something seemed to have happened that's helpful,
Yeah.
and I'm curious what happens that's helpful.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So what happens is helpful is that sort of hyper wired nervous system is calmed, as I was saying before about the individual who comes into my
Mm,
office and wishes to see Joey. Yeah, the double trauma focus, really. In the case of the office setting and the single client, I was thinking about just the client having brought trauma into the office with them internally, right? And Joey hasn't been traumatized, right? And I think relative to most people, I haven't been traumatized either. That's another conversation. But yeah, I think in the double trauma focus that we brought with our Shake A Paw program.
Shake a paw,
Shake A Paw.
like shaking hand, but you're
Yeah,
shaking
that was the
paws. Oh,
program
that's
of
a
the
nice name.
charity that we
Yeah.
ran. Yeah. And the idea was that we would train the youth to do some simple tasks with the dogs. So we had dogs that had a history of trauma. We had kids who had a history of trauma and youth, so youth to young adults. And we brought them together and we taught them how to work with the dogs, which was more difficult than with your usual friendly dog. Is more interested, more engaged, more interested in learning, more easy to learn, more easy to teach. A very engaging dog to do whatever you want them to for a treat.
Yeah.
So very treat focused training that we did, as well as we used a clicker. That's probably another story. So through these different training strategies and just building an understanding, teaching youth how trauma works for themselves as well as for the dogs. They learn to treat the dogs with kid gloves in a way, with gentleness, with empathy, with compassion. They had experienced trauma themselves, so they knew what it could be like for the dogs. Yeah.
So there's a common experience. There's a
Common experience. It
shared
was a shared
experience.
experience.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there's a
Yeah.
bonding of shared experience.
And so what happened, it was that the youth would become, although, cautiously, become more interested in working with the dogs as time went along. So we ran, it was several weeks, it was 6 to 8 weeks. We ran the program. And it went well. We had tons of referrals from the youth side of things, right? Like social workers, mental health workers would refer the youth to us. More difficult to get referrals for dogs to participate in the program.
So you had more people than dogs.
We had more people than dogs.
Yeah.
So that's one reason. One of our colleagues needed to step away from the program for her own reasons. And so with both of those reasons combined, we decided to take a pause in the program. Pause. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A pause on the pause.
Yeah. And gradually over a couple of years, we reframed our mission to focus still on trauma in a sense. We focused on helping women's transition houses, where women who were facing domestic violence and wish to escape from the home have a place to go. And one of those places is a transition house. And there are many, many, many of those around BC. And we decided we had a bit of money in our charity, a small amount of money that we could give to the transition houses to house the pets that belong to the women who were escaping their abusive situations. So backing up a little bit, the reason we focused on pet housing was one of the main reasons women don't leave their abusive situations is because they're afraid that their pet will be abused. They won't be able to protect their pet anymore if they leave the pet behind. So they tend to stay. Like the numbers range in the research a bit around that, how many decide to stay, but linger is kind of around 50% of women. They delay leaving the home.
Wow. So it becomes an obstacle.
It becomes an obstacle.
Yeah.
For them, getting the pet housed as well can become an obstacle. Some of the transition houses in BC do have facilities for pets. Some don't, and they need to farm out. They need to outsource the pet housing piece. So we're particularly interested in funding those houses that are outsourcing, or
Mhm.
those houses that may have facilities, but they're full, right? You can
Yeah.
imagine these houses supporting women with domestic violence are full often, right? And if they're bringing their pets in, those spaces will fill up
Of
too,
course.
right? So they'll need to start out outsourcing too if they're full. So we're there. We're
Mm.
here to provide small grants to fund pets for periods up to about a month at a
Mm.
time. So that hopefully gives the women time to get their lives together
Mm.
to some degree by that time.
What beautiful, important work. And can you name your organization, your
Yeah,
charity, and how
sorry.
people can find it just so, and I'll put in
Yeah,
the show notes, but can you say a little bit?
sure. It's Warm Hearts Pet Safe Havens Association.
Mm.
Warm Hearts Pet Safe Havens
And
Association.
the
And
website is
it's on
that
the
Warm
web.
Hearts
It's
or?
Warm Hearts Pet Safe Havens.org.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll put
Yeah,
that in the show notes. Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Mhm.
So, a couple of things, and this conversation has been so enjoyable. It's really going very fast. And I
Mhm.
just want to, I'm wondering if I can ask you two more things I'm curious about. And then one of them is challenges. Like, what are some challenges? We were talking earlier about becoming pet parents, and there's all the benefits, the mental health, the physical health benefits, all the quality of life, the bonding, all the different things you mentioned earlier. But what are some
Mhm.
challenges that, people who haven't owned a dog, for example, like myself, what are some things to know about, to include into the equation of getting a dog or not getting a dog? What are some challenges to know about?
Um, well, the things springing to mind are really to be open to, gathering some notion of what those challenges might be. So I really appreciate your question, just for the very essence of that question is an eagerness to know, right?
Mm,
So when you're forming a relationship with another animal, so what's going on with this particular animal or this particular type of animal, even more
mm,
broadly, if you haven't selected a particular animal yet,
right.
what's going on with this species, what's going on with this particular animal, if you know what it is, who it is, right? What's the identity of this being,
Mm,
right? And so, like learning about human beings, I see animals as beings too, right? They're
mm,
living beings, and they have a being they're capable of feelings, and some we may say are even capable of thoughts. It's going to be in
mm.
their own language.
Yeah.
And so I think those are, psychologically speaking, trying to answer that question a
Mm,
little more deeply than I did before, was about acknowledging that they are living beings, that they have a right to live, they have a right to life, and they have thoughts and feelings of their own and sensations, and they're aware, right, of what's going on around them from their perspective. And if we don't acknowledge those pieces, I think those that they are their own beings, then we can run into difficulties with them, right? We can run into challenges with them if we don't grant them that right to live, right? And if we don't
mm,
facilitate that right to live. I
mhm,
mean, I'm not a lawyer, uh, but I'm aware there's laws being coming onto the books that say that pets are their own beings, right?
mm,
They have a right to humane treatment. That's been written into law for a long time.
mm,
But not only that, they have the right to be considered in terms of, say, when a woman is going to take a pet from the home. Well, where is this pet going to be most comfortable?
right.
When are the rights of this pet's pet right? Where are the rights of this pet going to be most honored?
Mm,
Right? So that can become, a legal challenge. Where is this pet going to go? So that's certainly potentially quite a strong challenge in the sense of
mm. Like space. When you say where is it
where
gonna
is
go?
the animal going to live? Is
Yeah.
well, the perpetrator may say, well, that's my dog. That's my dog.
Mm,
And the abused woman is probably going to say, well, that's my dog. in this
Right.
situation, right? I mean, there might be clear and amicable parting. But I think it's likely that there would be some conflicts, about
Mm,
whose dog is this, right? Or whose
yeah.
cat is this? Or whose horse is this? There could be some conflicts there.
Oh,
So
I see what you mean. That's right.
that can
So,
be,
so,
the woman might try to take the animal and go, well, okay, this is mine. Well, perpetrator goes, no. And
right.
so
I see
there
what you mean.
could be,
S-
you know,
s-
serious
So, you're
challenges there.
yeah. So you're naming when there's like an abusive relationship, it can add
Yeah,
that complication. But even if it's not an abusive relationship
yeah,
and a couple, gets a pet and then it's like co-parenting, who keeps the pet? Like that's what you mean. Like if things, whether it's abusive or not, if a
yes,
relationship between people doesn't work out, who's keeping the
yes,
pet? So that's something to
exactly.
think about in
Yeah,
bringing a pet into a family, I guess. That's one
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And I mean, one of the things for me, I guess I'm curious about because with my African gray parrot, whenever before he passed away, when we would travel, it'd be like we have to really plan it ahead. Like, okay, where is he gonna go? Is he gonna take care of him, and how long is here? It's all the planning. So it made me think: is there any additional things I gotta think about with a dog outside of that? And so that's, I guess, what's actually behind my question, my own pure curiosity, and for those who are just about to get a dog or are thinking about challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess just in general, if you're curious about getting a dog, again, I'd want to reiterate, do your research,
Mm.
right? Get some books together, ask people, ask your friends who have dogs or family members who already have dogs, what do I have to look forward to here?
Yeah.
I think that's great. At the same time as there's this, I would have the expectation of people, maybe not expectation, but anticipate people who are wanting to get a dog of their own, try out the dog first. Like, okay, we've already had some interaction with dogs. That
Mm.
that would tell me that you're interested in getting a dog. Would tell me you've had some interaction
Right.
with
That's a
dogs.
good start. Like be
Yeah,
around a dog, Yeah.
yeah. Be
Yeah.
around a
Yeah.
dog. Maybe go to some dog parks. Maybe go to some friends or family members who have dogs. Yeah, and you've already done that probably.
You know
You
what?
know.
It's so true. My wife and I, we did that. As soon as we started
Mm.
thinking about, we just, do our usual walks and but like let's check out this dog park. Let's check out, and I
Mm.
actually joined a couple of Facebook groups of different groups of dog parents who have different
Yeah,
breeds, and
yeah.
joined two so far, two different breeds, and like just getting to see what is it like being around this breed and just hearing
Mhm.
from their owners. And actually was a nice way of socializing. Like it became an
Yeah.
excuse because, as adults, making friends is not exactly easy. Making friends is not the easiest thing.
Except with
So
a friendly dog.
except for the dog, exactly. So it became a good way. So far, met a couple of people by just reaching out to different
Yeah.
groups,
Yeah.
and it's giving me ideas of oh no, this dog was a lot bigger than I thought. This won't fit in our space. So like this reaching, researching, and it's actually been enjoyable. So
Mm.
yeah, you're right. You got to be around the dog to decide. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the challenge is back to those. It's yeah, again, I mentioned earlier, right? Is the challenge of having the time to devote to the dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the dog remains your friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just treating it humanely, feeding it, letting it outside, taking it for regular walks, from which you're going to benefit from all the exercise you get from walking your dog.
That's right. Win-win.
And then, some challenges in probably interacting with certain other kinds of dogs or people
Mm,
can come up around dogs. Great. They're great, lubricants for conversation about dogs. At the same time, some people might not like dogs and might not even want to be around dogs, but they happen to be there in the park or on the trail where you are with your dog.
yeah.
And they're like, oh, you got a dog there. Most people are like, yeah, 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 great,
Yeah.
fantastic, you got a dog.
Yeah, but not everyone. And
Not everyone.
yeah, and being
So,
okay, I guess that's too being okay because some people also have,
yeah.
I have family like that too, but
Mhm.
it's very, they're afraid and don't want to be around the dog and just kind of
Yeah,
respecting that too, that not everyone has to
respecting
like
that.
dogs or love dogs
No,
or to
absolutely.
be. they have to be converted to dog lovers. It's like, it's okay,
No.
so loving those who have dogs and loving those who
Hmm.
don't. That's been how I
Yes,
think about it. It's like, it's
absolutely.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. So,
Hmm.
I'm wondering, just as we're coming to the end for today, there's
Hmm.
a whole nother area that feels like it's a whole different podcast we can talk about. But in terms of your area of work, and I'm wondering if we can just touch base, at least for listeners to know some of your work into the psychedelic assisted integration therapy. So I'm wondering if you can
Hmm.
say a little bit about that so people get a sense of that work and anything else you want to
Sure.
share about your work. So,
Well, the other main area that I'm exploring right now is psychedelic integration therapy. It has percolated through my life in a sense. The interest in psychedelics has percolated through my life since my late teens and early 20s when I experimented with psychedelics, um, marijuana, mushrooms, LSD.
mm,
And some of those experiences were very powerful. And so I was left throughout my life, throughout the rest of my life. But now I'm significantly older. I'm in my 60s now. Still having very, very strong memories of those experiences. So when I learned that there's actually a lot more interest now than there was at that time when I was younger,
mm,
there was the war on drugs happening at that time.
right.
So, but now there's a lot of research showing that there's very promising benefits to being caringly and carefully in a controlled environment. There's strong benefits being shown with clinical supervision, I might add, to consuming psychedelics
Mm,
under clinical supervision. And I think the way that psychedelics work, goal that I've had since I started doing therapy with people is I have wanted for my clients to be able to feel different. I've wanted for my clients to be able to think differently, to not be preoccupied or even obsessed by negative thinking and disturbed by negative thinking or feelings or sensations. Yes, we all have struggles, but people come to therapy because they're overwhelmed by it. So I think their research on psychedelics is showing that that is what psychedelics can do. That's
mm,
what it does in the brain. It makes the brain explore different pathways that we don't ordinarily explore when we're kind
wow.
of trapped in a way in the sensation of having this body and this mind and this is the way it
Mm,
works, is that I've got my troubles and I need to focus on them.
mm,
And that's the prison I'm stuck in, is my ego and the way I think things are and the way it's, so to be blunt, shitty, and I need help.
yeah.
And I'm not saying run out and take some psychedelics. That's
No,
not
this
what
is
I'm
controlled, and that's how you
saying.
began it. It's like a
Hmm.
controlled, safe,
Hmm.
with
So, but I am concerned about the risk, and the risks are that if you take enough, you're very likely to have a mystical experience, which
mm,
means space, time, concept of self. Many of your belief systems will be
mm,
challenged, extremely challenged, to the
mm,
point where they can all disappear. Ego dissolution, they call it.
yeah.
And interestingly, I was reading an article just before our meeting today that Robin Carhart Harris is involved in this article amongst hundreds of others. He's putting meditation alongside the psychedelic experience
Mm,
and explaining that there's a similar motive behind each, and that is that dissolving of the self, the way we think of ourselves, feel ourselves. So psychedelics aren't the only tool,
no, that's right.
right? Meditation, mindfulness can help us access, as you know, different ways of thinking about ourselves and others and the world around us. And I
Mm,
think a much more gentle way than psychedelics do.
yeah.
So while there are some benefits being shown in the literature for psychedelics, controlled, supervised sessions with psychedelics, it's important that person be very well prepared for such sessions.
Mm.
And meditation is often proposed as a mode of preparation, as well
Mm.
as a mode of integration afterwards.
Yes.
It's like, what the hell just happened to me?
Yes.
Sorry, meaning making. Yeah.
Yeah, making
Yeah.
sense of
Yeah.
experience and
How
this
did,
kind of
it's like, what did
introspection.
that mean? What did that mean? Yeah.
You're saying something about, the mindfulness piece. There's something deeply supportive about the introspection
Hmm.
of mindfulness,
Absolutely.
getting to know, turning in,
Mhm.
which at times can be challenging if we've coped by avoiding looking in. So there might be a period of some discomfort as people turn in, and we do have at our Center for Mindfulness Canada,
Mhm.
centerformindfulness.ca, and we can put the
Mhm.
website, free
Yeah,
information
wonderful.
sessions about mindfulness. It's
Mhm.
something that has really supported me,
Mhm.
including the 8-week program, Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction, MBSR. It's really about turning in gently, discovering our
Yeah.
emotions, our thoughts, and
Mhm.
our habitual ways
Yes.
of not just behaving, habitual ways of thinking and being.
Mhm.
So it's really helpful as I hear you describe this. Like, here's one way as you speak about psychedelic supported integration therapy, and but here's other support for it. Mindfulness could be very helpful on its own or as a support. So I want to ask you this. So when someone comes to see you, like, what have they? You don't administer like
No.
psilocybin or ketamine. So how does it
Mhm.
work? If someone's interested in reaching out to you, at what phase they're going to somewhere that's registered to do that, and then they
Yeah.
come see you? Is that how it works? So someone has no idea about this. So is that what they do? Look up somewhere that's obviously.
Well, I'm listed on psychedelic.support and put links to my website out there.
Yes.
So, but I mean, in terms of what would bring people, there's a page on my website on psychedelic integration. So if you could, yeah, Dawson Psychological Services.com, and then the psychedelic integration page has
Yeah.
a series of questions that probe whether a person is having persistent flashbacks, whether they're having
Okay.
disturbing images still returning to them, images, feelings, very unusual thoughts. Are they feeling like themselves or
After the
not
psychedelic experience
after the
that's been
psychedelic
controlled,
experience? So
administered by someone.
after the experience
Yeah.
has been, well, not necessarily control. Lots of people are using recreationally these days. So I'm even
Oh,
more concerned about them than I am about the controlled sessions that people go to.
right.
Although sometimes they come out of controlled sessions and there isn't necessarily follow up with a therapist or
Mm,
counselor, but I strongly believe there should be
yeah.
that offered. And if the person is needing that support, that follow up, then, I'm a therapist who could offer that through help with integrating the meaning of the types of experiences they had during their session with
Mm,
psychedelics. And
yeah.
it's what's going to bring them is around that sense of disturbance. Wow, this is still bothering me, several months later, right? And it's kind of, there was some rough stuff that I was put in front of in my journey, and yeah, I need to deal with this.
Yeah.
Or, a parent might say, "Oh, you need some help here. I think you need some help." And they're telling their
Mm.
their teenager that has done some psychedelics, might have done some psychedelics, and the parent is concerned for the teen that, maybe the teen should see somebody. I'm really more interested in helping the parents help the teen.
What an important piece of that's why it's called integration. This makes sense as you're describing it. It's really integrating an experience and
Mhm.
supporting someone through it so they come see
Mhm.
you. And I'll put the links in the show notes again, so people can learn more, find you, and see if that's something fitting for them as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
this has been truly enjoyable. And I'm wondering, any final thoughts as we come to an end? I really thank you. But any other final thoughts that you have about both in terms of pets or this work that you want people to know?
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of my career, these are both fairly new. And I think in terms of therapy in general, right, and how it's evolved over time, before I was born even. Yeah, I think that certain kinds of therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, for example, that one in particular is, in my opinion, overrated in terms of its success
Mm.
over and above the other.
Everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of therapies there, emotion focused, somatic,
Yeah.
mindfulness, and so on, right? The animal assisted psychedelic integration that all can be very, very helpful to people.
Yeah.
But sometimes people get recommendations from, I don't know, certain people. I don't want to target anybody with that.
No, yeah, but it's like a knowledge too, right? Like a knowledge,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, that's what people know. Oh, they heard about this, like, oh, CBT. That's the only thing out there. And what you're saying, actually, there's a lot of other
Exactly.
really
They
helpful
hear,
modalities that might be
yeah,
more fitting for someone and more supportive.
that's well summarized.
Yes.
Thank you
Well,
for that.
thank you so much. A true pleasure having you. Thank you for sharing your love and passion for serving, for supporting others, and really living your life following your own heart. And you're clearly
Mm,
doing what you've loved. So thank you for
mm.
the work, for your
Well, thank
support,
you.
for your contribution to the community. And I want to thank everyone for listening and watching. And if you found this useful and helpful, feel free to like, share, and if you haven't done already, subscribe. Thank you. May your moment be filled with ease, and may you be present in as many of them. Thank you.